Hi, I'm Christian Espinosa. My book is The Smartest Person in the Room, The Root Cause and New Solution for Cybersecurity. A little bit about myself in my book. Um, for myself, I found that I was doing a lot of things I didn't want to do in my life. I was going to a job I didn't really like too much. I was working for people I didn't really like that much. And I just remember like one day I was driving to work and I just felt like not getting off at the exit to go to work. I just felt like kept driving and like starting over. So I had this defining moment with a company I was working with where I had this run-in with the CEO, and it became a constant like battle with the CEO and I. We didn't see eye to eye. So I decided to quit that job because I was so like stressed out about it. I decided to quit that job without another job lined up. And that's the first time I'd ever done something like that because I grew up in a very chaotic, poor childhood where I valued stability and taking the right steps. But I quit this job and didn't have a plan, but then started solopreneur work and started freelance work. And I got bored with that. Then I started my company, Alpine Security, which I sold in 2020. Alpine Security was a cybersecurity company. So my book is really written about my experience with my cybersecurity company, Alpine Security. A lot of people think it's a cybersecurity book. It's not a cybersecurity book. It's more of a emotional intelligence or people skills book or personal development book centered around my experience in cybersecurity. Because one of the things I realized when I had my own company was that 99% of the problems I had in my company were related to a lack of people skills, not a lack of technical skills. And I realized throughout my career that I was one of the problems that didn't, one of the people that didn't have the people skills as well. I was the one trying to be smarter than other people and trying to talk over people's heads because we all want to be significant. And I realized that that was holding me to glass ceiling. And I saw that when sort of the perspective turned and I was in charge of a company where I saw like past versions of me in my company, and I worked hard to fix the culture in the company and fix that challenge, which is what I wrote the book about, really. So it's really about how to take what you already have and then incorporate some better emotional intelligence into that.
All right, so I think you've touched on this already, but can you describe your purpose in writing The Smartest Person in the Room, and what are you hoping that readers are taking away when they read your work? So, like, why should people want to read your book?
The purpose of the book is really to share my experience as an entrepreneur and as somebody that had to go through my own transformation. Because, like I said, we all want to feel significant, and I used to feel significant by trying to be smarter than other people. So I feel like my message is important to get out there, and I really want to shortcut people's learning, especially anyone in personal development or anyone that's an entrepreneur, or anyone trying to run their business. I want to shortcut their learning so they don't have to pay as much dumb tax, I like to say, as I did, because I've paid a lot of dumb tax. I've made a lot of mistakes, and the whole purpose is to give people something they can learn from and hopefully pay less of that dumb tax.
Yeah, I've never heard of it described that way, but it makes sense. So, what is your favorite story, aspect, or general idea from the novel?
I incorporated quite a bit of NLP or neuro linguistic programming into the book. I'm a master NLP practitioner. And I think the concept of NLP and how I tie it into the book and how I tie it into my 7-step methodology to improve your people skills is unique. And I think it's something I really value. Like one of the things I always think about are the NLP presuppositions. They're like how to live your life, basically. And one of them is we all have a different model of the world. So sometimes we think, why isn't that person getting it? Why don't they see it the way I see it? But it's because they have a different model of the world, and they're probably thinking the same thing about us. And one of the ones I talk about in the book quite a bit, one of the NLP presuppositions, is that the meaning of communication is the response you get. So if you're not getting the right response with your spouse, your partner, the people at work, if they're not giving you the raise, if your spouse isn't listening to you, then it shifts the ownership back on you to alter how you communicate in a way that the message is received properly. And I think that's very important in cybersecurity specifically, or anything in life, because we often talk a certain way, we keep speaking a certain way, then we wonder, like, how come nobody understands us? And it's because we're not changing how we communicate. I remember being in Italy once after college, and there was an Italian ice cream parlor and an American trying to order an ice cream from this Italian. And the American didn't speak Italian, and the Italian didn't speak English, but the American just kept raising the volume of what he was asking for instead of like altering how he communicated. And obviously, the Italian didn't understand it at normal tone or normal volume. So the Italian didn't understand it when the American was screaming, basically. So that's an example of like, you should probably alter how you communicate to get the response you want, which in that case was the right ice cream.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot more to your book than just like the cybersecurity. There's a lot of emotional intelligence and people skills. So, what inspired you to pursue writing entrepreneurship after you already had a background in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I kind of touched upon that earlier, that defining moment where I had the kind of run in with the CEO of a company I was working for. I thought I was successful as a VP in that company, and had the white picket fence. He was married, had all the stuff you define as successful. Had the house with the mortgage payment, all that stuff. But after that, I started as a freelancer, and I was making a lot of money. I had a lot of free time, but I got bored with it. I felt like there's something more I need to contribute to society, and there's something more I need to learn. So I thought, what better way to force me to grow and to contribute to society than to form my own company and hire a staff and grow that company? And that's what I did. And that forced me to figure a lot of things out. As an entrepreneur, you have to figure a lot of things out. It forced me how to become a better leader. And I also felt like I was contributing to society. At one point, I had 16 people in my company, and I was the one providing their income, and they're providing the tax base for our country as well.
Yeah, it's really inspiring because I guess it's never too late to like kind of switch your career direction a little bit. But
Yeah, it's never too late. The
yeah,
sooner like the better. If you got that persistent gut feeling that you want to do something different, you shouldn't ignore it. I
yeah,
ignored it for a long time, and I think if I would have started what I felt was my journey, like the entrepreneur path, a long time ago, I think I would be much further ahead. But I held back out of fear and out of like what typical success is, and how society feels like you should be happy with just this or that.
yeah, it's good you're sharing your life lessons for everybody else so that they can learn. So I guess switching more to like kind of your personal background. So like it's like apparent on your website and everything that you're a very avid athlete with everything from scuba diving to mountain climbing in your repertoire. So how has your Daredevil personality influenced your work and journey as an author?
A couple ways. One is I've always, like you said, I've always been kind of a daredevil. I've been attracted to these things with a waiver. Like I've noticed in my life, if there's always a waiver for something I'm doing, like you could die or lose your limb or something, and some of the things are very dangerous. So I kind of felt like, as an author, what's the worst that can happen? I'm not going to die if I publish this book and nobody cares about it, or I get a bunch of bad reviews. I've done things that are much more dangerous. So it gave me really the courage to start, because I had that attitude, like, what's the worst that can happen? And the other thing, gave me a lot of like life experiences to draw from. When you do a lot of hard things in your life, and adventurous things, it gives you some perspective as well, and things that I incorporate into my book. But cybersecurity is about risk. A lot of the things I do are high risk, but it's about managing that risk. So is like publishing a book. It's about managing the risk. And one of the things that I had to kind of come to grips with in February last year, I developed 6 blood clots in my left leg and almost died, and had this like horrible experience with a doctor at the hospital. And the doctor basically said he sees blood clots all the time, and he had no empathy. And I'm like, well, I've never seen a blood clot. This is a first for me. And he's like, you could die, or you could have a stroke at any moment. So it was a really challenging time for me, and because I couldn't do those adventurous things you're talking about. So I had to like sit and think a lot and reflect a lot. And um, my next book is really on along those lines of what I learned through that experience as well, and tying it to this book as well. So ultimately about becoming a better human being. That's what this book is about too.
Yeah, it sounds like learning to take risks is just like part of growing up, I guess. But it's really interesting that like you have that experience to draw from for your next book. But
Yeah.
so more in your like personal background as a writer, how has your formal education and familial background translated to your work?
I don't think my formal education really translated into my work at all. I think uh, the things I did, like the experiences, like the mountain climbing, starting a business, more of the sort of informal education or school of hard knocks things was way more valuable than any formal education I had. My familial background translated in my work quite a bit because it translates into me. I grew up in extreme poverty with like a drug addicted mother, and there's always chaos. So I think for a large part of my life, I was seeking security and stability. And that's kind of why I said at the beginning, I was going to this job I didn't like and doing these things I didn't like, but I felt like that's what I needed at the point at that time. So it took me a while to kind of undo that and be able to put myself out there with a book, be vulnerable with the next book, and take the step to entrepreneurship and kind of step out of that comfort zone of being, quote, successful. Because I was successful, but I felt like I was at a glass ceiling. And I think my childhood really contributed. It really motivated me to achieve a lot because I wanted to get out of my environment. So I got every scholarship I applied for. I was, number two in my class and all district football and all these things because I was so driven to get out of that environment. But that drive also caused me to have a me against the world attitude, and that can only take you so far. And really, I had to realize, like, you know what, I'm part of the world, so why is it me against the world? And that's the transformation I had to go through. Because I think any book you write or any speech you give, it should be transformational to the author as well as the people that read it. Otherwise, I don't think the book's probably going to be that great.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you share like what you learn with everybody else so that they can learn from what you've already gone through. So I guess like going along that grain, what is your advice for aspiring writers who are hoping to write their own novel?
I think we all have a unique message inside of us, and some of us might say, "Well, that's been said before, that's been done before." But what's unique about it is our spin on it, and sometimes our spin and our experience that we weave into our message can resonate or connect with somebody at a different level that may change their life uh, for a positive direction. So I think it's important to realize we are unique and we have something to share with the world. And one of the things that takes a little bit to get over, at least it did with me, is to get over myself. What I had to realize was when I'm writing this book, I'm not writing it for myself really. I'm writing it, like I mentioned earlier, to shortcut or reduce the dumb tax for other people. So I felt like that is a compelling reason to write the book. So that is more compelling than me worrying about what somebody might think when I publish the book, or if I get a bad review, or someone is putting bad things about me on Twitter or whatever. That gave me the courage just to do it, and I also realized that my book is not going to be perfect. When I was going through the writing phase, it's easy to get into revising and revising and revising and revising and revising. At some point, you just have to say, I'm going to cut this and just get it out there, and then I'll take the lessons learned from this book and put them in the next book. And that's kind of what I did. I also think it's important to get clarity on your message. So one of the things I did quite a bit of, which may sound silly, is I would, like, if I was hiking or walking in the woods, I would like hold my phone up and do like a video. I was talking to my phone, about certain topics in the book. And what I realized is just by vocalizing my ideas or concepts, that I got a lot of clarity out of it. Because sometimes we think it's crystal clear until we actually speak it or write it. So I think that's a good exercise that works for me as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice for writers. I know, like, sometimes I want to be a writer, so that kind of helps me too. But those
Yeah.
are the questions that I had for you. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close?
I hope people read the book and enjoy the book. I've also got a course that aligns with my 7-step methodology. It's a people skills course. And my next book, I'm hoping will be out in August timeframe, maybe September timeframe of 2023. My next book is really targeted for high achievers or anyone focused on like a macro goal, and it's called The In Between: Life in the Micro. So it's nothing to do with cybersecurity. It's more to do with like transformation, but it's more of a focused memoir that takes the people that are really focused on achievements and at the expense of the micro moments between where we are in that achievement, and tries to achieve some balance so we get more honed in on what's right in front of us.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to link all of that in the video description for people who are watching the video. But thank you for taking the time to meet with me. And for those of you who are watching at home, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next week.